A 3,700-year-old clay tablet sits in the British Museum, catalog number BM 78941. For decades, scholars filed it under mythology, a flood story, a Babylonian Genesis, nothing more. Then a team of linguists ran the full text through modern translation software and went silent. The tablet did not describe a natural disaster. It described 3 separate attempts by a single god to exterminate the human species. First, disease, then famine, then a flood engineered to leave no survivors. The text names the god. It names his motive. It records civilizations on the edge of annihilation, people fleeing their cities in terror, abandoning everything they built to survive what was coming for them. But that is not what made the linguists stop. What stopped them was the part that describes when it happens again, not in some distant future, within our generation. The tablet is called Atrahasis. It was excavated from the ruins of the ancient city of Sippar in modern-day Iraq, and the most complete copy dates to approximately 1635 BCE. 3 tablets, over 1,200 lines of Akkadian cuneiform. The British Museum acquired the main fragments in the late 19th century through the excavations of Hormuzd Rassam, the same man who unearthed the library of Ashurbanipal at Nineveh. For nearly a century, Assyriologists treated the Atrahasis as a literary curiosity, a Mesopotamian creation myth followed by a flood narrative. Interesting for comparative religion, irrelevant to history. Then in 2009, Dr. Martin Fielding at the University of Manchester Department of Ancient Near Eastern Studies conducted a structural analysis of the text that changed the conversation entirely. Fielding was not looking for mythology. He was studying Babylonian administrative language, the way scribes documented real events versus religious narratives. His conclusion was direct. The Atrahasis uses the grammatical structure of historical chronicle, not liturgical poetry. The verb forms, the temporal markers, the specificity of technical detail. This text was written as a record, not a prayer. Here's what the record says. The god Enlil ruled the heavens. Humanity had multiplied across the land. Cities grew, populations expanded, and the noise became unbearable. The tablet uses a specific word, huburu, which translates to noise, clamor, disturbance. Enlil could not rest. The sound of humanity kept him from sleep. So he made a decision. Humanity would end. But Enlil did not strike all at once. The tablet describes 3 separate extermination attempts, each escalating in severity. First, he sent plague. The text calls it disease that shut the womb, sickness that stopped the breath. It spread across the cities. People died in numbers the tablet does not quantify, but describes as beyond counting. Then Enlil cut the rains. Famine followed. Fields turned to dust. Rivers shrank. The tablet says the people's faces looked like malt, pale, hollow, starving. Each time, the god Enki, Enlil's rival, secretly intervened. He whispered instructions to a man named Atrahasis through a reed wall, telling him how to organize the survivors, how to redirect prayers to specific gods who could lift the punishment. Twice, humanity survived because one god undermined another. Enlil was furious. The noise returned. The people multiplied again, so he chose a weapon that could not be undermined. Water. The tablet describes the flood not as weather, but as warfare. Enlil opened the sky and the ground simultaneously, rain from above, groundwater from below. The text says the flood roared like a bull, and the wind howled like a screaming eagle. This was not a river overflowing. This was coordinated annihilation. The water rose with purpose. It followed the population centers. It filled the valleys where people fled. It climbed the hills where they gathered. This is what stalked them. Not a creature, not an army. A flood designed by a god who had already failed twice and would not fail a third time. The water was his instrument, and it moved like a hunter, patient, relentless, engineered to reach everywhere people tried to hide. Enki defied orders one final time. He warned Atrahasis through the reed wall of his house. He gave him 7 days. He told him to build a vessel, seal it with bitumen inside and out, load it with his family, his livestock, and the craftsmen who carried essential knowledge. The tablet specifies the shape of the vessel. It was round, a coracle design, with precise measurements for its diameter and wall height. The waterproofing instructions are detailed enough that in 2014, Dr. Irving Finkel at the British Museum actually built a replica using the tablet specifications. It floated. The rest of the population received no warning. The tablet says when the flood came, the people ran from the cities. They scattered across the plains. They climbed to high ground. The water followed. It rose above the walls. It covered the fields, the roads, the temples. The tablet says darkness fell at noon. The gods themselves looked down and wept at what Enlil had done. This is not the only source. The same event appears across civilizations separated by thousands of miles. The Hebrew Bible records Noah receiving a divine warning, building a vessel, surviving a flood sent to destroy humanity. The timeline, the structure, the single righteous man warned by a sympathetic deity, identical to Atrahasis. But Noah's version is younger by at least 1,000 years. The Hindu Matsya Purana describes Manu, warned by a fish avatar of Vishnu, building a vessel to survive a deluge that consumed the world. Same structure, same single survivor, same divine warning. The Greek myth of Deucalion, son of Prometheus, surviving a flood sent by Zeus to punish humanity. Zeus was angry. The noise of human wickedness disturbed him. The parallel to Enlil's motive is exact. The Chinese tradition records the Great Flood of Gun Yu, a catastrophic inundation so severe that Emperor Yao appointed Gun to stop it. Gun failed. His son Yu spent 13 years draining the waters, digging channels, redirecting rivers. The Chinese account adds a detail none of the others mention. The flood came from both the sky and the earth at the same time. Rain from above, springs erupting from below. The exact mechanism the Atrahasis describes. Every one of these traditions records the same sequence. A god or divine force decides humanity must end. One man receives a warning or a task. He acts while everyone else perishes. The geographic spread, Mesopotamia, the Levant, India, Greece, China, suggests either a shared source event or a shared source text that predates all surviving copies. And the physical evidence is in the ground. In 1929, British archaeologist Leonard Woolley was excavating the ancient city of Ur in southern Iraq. Beneath layers of pottery, tools, and habitation debris, his team hit something that stopped the dig. A layer of clean, water-deposited silt, 3 meters thick, containing no human artifacts. Below it, a completely different civilization's remains. Above it, the culture that rebuilt after whatever had happened. Woolley's discovery was not unique. Similar flood deposits were found at Kish, at Shurapak, at multiple sites across the Mesopotamian plain. The dating is consistent. Approximately 5,000 years ago, something catastrophic and water-based hit the entire region hard enough to leave a geological signature visible millennia later. Mainstream archaeology explains this as localized river flooding, seasonal overflow, the natural behavior of the Tigris and Euphrates. And that explanation works until you read the Atrahasis, because the tablet does not describe a river flood. It describes a coordinated event from above and below simultaneously. And it describes it not as an accident of nature, but as a deliberate act by an intelligence that wanted a specific outcome: total extinction. Dr. Fielding's 2009 analysis flagged something else that most translators overlooked. After the flood narrative, the tablet contains a passage that describes the terms of humanity's survival. Enlil eventually accepts that humans will continue to exist, but he imposes conditions. He introduces death as permanent. He shortens the human lifespan. He creates infertility in certain women. And then, according to Fielding's reading, the text contains a temporal marker that has been consistently mistranslated as from this day forward. Fielding argues the Akkadian grammar actually reads until the count returns to the beginning. A cycle, not a one-time event. A recurring pattern with a reset point. This is where the modern parallel becomes difficult to dismiss. The Greenland ice sheet is currently losing 247 billion tons of ice per year, 7 times faster than it was in the 1990s. Antarctic ice loss has nearly quadrupled in the same period, from 51 billion tons annually to 199 billion. Global sea level has risen over 21 centimeters since 1880, and the rate is accelerating. It took a century to rise the first 14 centimeters. The last 7 took just 25 years. Over 680 million people currently live in low-lying coastal zones. By 2050, that number exceeds 1 billion. A 1-meter rise in sea level, which current models project is possible by 2100, would displace over 300 million people. Not kill, displace. 300 million people running from rising water. The Atrahasis does not give a date for the next cycle, but the pattern it describes, a civilization that grows loud, that fills the land, that disturbs the balance, followed by water that rises to reset the count, is not ancient history. It is a description of a process. And that process does not require a god to initiate it. The ice is already melting, the water is already rising, the coastlines are already shifting. The Thwaites Glacier in West Antarctica, which scientists call the Doomsday Glacier, currently accounts for 4% of annual global sea level rise on its own. If it collapses entirely, sea levels jump by 65 centimeters. For every centimeter of rise, approximately 6 million additional people face coastal flooding. That is not a metaphor. That is arithmetic. And the collapse has already begun. Researchers drilling through 1 kilometer of ice in early 2026 confirmed that warm ocean water is eroding the glacier from below faster than any model predicted. The Atrahasis tablet sits in the British Museum today, BM 78941, broken into 3 pieces and reassembled with museum glue. Most visitors walk past it on the way to the Egyptian galleries. It looks like every other piece of baked clay in the collection. But if you understand what the text describes, you are not looking at mythology. You are reading an operational record of the last time water was used to end a civilization. Dr. Fielding offers a translation of the tablet's final surviving lines that differs from the standard academic rendering. Where most scholars read a hymn of reconciliation between gods and men, Fielding reads something else entirely. The waters remember what the gods commanded. They wait beneath the ground. They wait above the sky. When the noise returns, the waters return. The noise has returned. The waters are returning. If this is the kind of ancient history that changes how you see the present, subscribe. Next week, we are covering a tablet that describes a place inside the earth and the coordinates it gives to the entrance. It is on screen now. Click it.